Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Rundown, where we talk about 2A news and conservative views. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras. Today, we will be doing the program. Well, it's just going to be us. It's going to be me. It's going to be you, unless Micah gets the opportunity to be able to check in a little bit later. But hey, we always have a good time on Taco Tuesday.
It's raining tacos from out of the sky. Tacos, no need to ask why. Just open your mouth and close your eyes. It's raining tacos. It's raining tacos out in the street. Tacos, all you can eat. Lettuce and shells, cheese and meat. It's raining tacos. Yum, 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 yum.
That's right, folks. It is like a dream on this fine Taco Tuesday. Now, today we're going to be doing something a little bit different in terms of tacos for Taco Tuesday. We are actually going to be having butter chicken. But, see, the great part about butter chicken, the great thing about butter chicken, which is really Indian food, the great part about that is we also get to eat it with this bread, folded bread called naan, right? Naan is basically like a flour taco tortilla. So we are actually going to be having, I will call them Indian tacos. Okay, maybe they're not, but that's what we're going to be having tonight. We're going to be having some butter chicken. We're going to be having it with some naan. It will be folded together. It will be just like a taco, except probably very little Mexican seasoning. But then again, as we've already said, tacos is uniquely American because, well, you know, it's one of the things we always do as we do here in the United States. We take those things that are from the cultures that all come together and make up the United States, and we kind of make it our own. So anyway, that's going to be that's going to be the tacos that I'm going to be having this evening. I don't know. Let us know. Well, what kind of tacos you're going to be having this evening? You know, whatever y'all feel like. Would love to hear if you have a different traditions relating to tacos, or the stuff that you, however you like to consume your, however you like to consume your tacos. Would love to hear a little bit more about it. Now, what I am doing right now, for those of you, once again, who are watching us on OpsLens on Facebook, but are watching us through the OpsLens page, as we go live, or as I start seeing this running live on OpsLens, I will go ahead and I'll put the link in for the rundown. Now, you can always look it up yourself. The rundown, 2A News, conservative 2A News. You can look for it that way. But I know that for some reason, and once again, I have no idea why, but it just tends to do this. Until we know that we've got it fixed, I will keep adding that link I'll keep adding the link there in the what is it? In the comments section, so that you guys can go over to the Rundown's Facebook page and watch us on there. So once again, apologize for the inconvenience. We will get this working one of these days. All right. Before we get into the program, you know what we got to do you know what time it is. It's time for us to go ahead and talk to and give a shout out to our sponsors. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start with Hitman Industries. If you're looking for rifle barrels, or you're looking for handgun caliber barrels, especially if you're looking for Glock barrels, because they got them now, Glock barrels, you need to go over to Hitman Industries. You can find them at hitmanindustries.net. They have a first responders discount, so make sure you check them out. Once again, whether you're rebarreling your current rifle or you're doing a whole new build, that's the place where you need to be getting your barrels. Once again, Hitman Industries. Then we've got the California Republican Assembly, the conscience of the Republican Party, or as I like to call them in California, the Republican wing of the Republican Party in California, working to help elect movement conservatives at offices, all the way from dog catcher or school board, all the way up to President of the United States. They are active, they are involved, and they are engaged. You can check them out at cragop.org. That's cragop.org. Remember, if you want to be a part of California's future today, join CRA. And then next, we've got Hog Industries. Oh, wow. Okay. So on Taco Tuesday, my daughter has made it a point to bring me some street tacos. See, You see how you see, all you got to do is you speak it and it will come. Thank you so much. All right. Unfortunately, I probably will not be eating them while we're talking on the thing, on the show, because, well, that kind of makes for a bad, what's what I'm looking for? Makes for a bad conversation for the host, especially the sole host today, to actually be eating while he's on the program. Now, the challenge is it smells really, 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 really good. But once again, we will be enjoying some of those street tacos. But as I said, we'll also be enjoying the butter chicken, with the naan later on today. Anyway, almost forgot. We got hog holsters. If you're looking for an inside the waistband, outside the waistband, if you're looking for a tactical holster or a concealed carry holster, go to hogholsters.com. Trust me, they have the setup, whatever setup you have. Whatever optic you have on there, you maybe have a flashlight on there, maybe you have an optic on there, and it's been hard for you to find a setup or to find a holster that works for you. Trust me, they can hook you up. Go to hogholsters.com. Make sure you use the discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your hog holster today. Remember, one word. And then finally, any sort of outdoor gear, if you're looking for camping gear, if you're looking for hiking gear, if you're looking for shooting gear, everything other than the gun, trust me, you can find it at a reasonable price at uscombatgear.com. Veteran owned and operated, fast shipping, great selection, great prices. Check them out today, uscombatgear.com. All right, let's go ahead and get into today's stories. This first one is, well, it's probably to a certain degree not really new news, because we've known that the FBI, or that the Justice Department, has been targeting, ever since the Obama administration, conservatives. What we now know is they're not just targeting conservatives, they're going after Christians. They're going after people of faith, people of conscience, who are willing to stand up to their radical perspectives. Now, mind you, they call people who actually believe in the Bible, they consider you to be radicals. I'm a radical. In their eyes, I am a radical. I believe that life begins at conception. I believe that there are only two genders, and all of I believe the things that make up my faith, right? Because I believe them, and I'm not willing to let the government indoctrinate me or indoctrinate my children or indoctrinate other people's children, I am considered to be a radical. Now, their belief is that the radicals are dangerous, because keep in mind, words are now violence in their eyes, right? If we are violent, if we are saying something that isn't nice, we are not just engaged in expressing our right to freedom of speech. In their eyes, we are engaged in violence. So, now, by the way, but now we actually, once again, in this particular case, we already knew they were targeting Christians, but now there is actual physical proof. That's right. The FBI admitted via a FOIA request filed by the American Center for Law and Justice and the Law and Justice that it has found 1,200 document pages that are related to unlawful targeting of radical traditionalist Christians. Previously, we told you about our Freedom of Information Act request regarding the FBI's targeting of radical traditionalist Christians under the guise of targeting white supremacy. Specifically, an FBI intelligence analyst wrote that note what is called domain perspective, i.e., a memo outlining the ideas and habits of a group under surveillance, i.e. conservative and pro-life Christians in church, the ACLJ reported. The ACLJ then leapt into action and sent a FOIA to the FBI in order to expose who in the FBI knew about and was behind the abhorrent memo. When the FBI did not comply, we sent it to court. We went to court. The Biden FBI has just informed the ACLJ and a federal judge that it has found at least 1,200 pages of potentially responsive documents to our FOIA request and needs more time to continue further searches. This begs the question, what in the world is the FBI doing with 1,200 pages of documents related to the targeting of Christians? Now, that's not the only thing that I think that we need to be concerned about in this particular case. Number one is, why are they targeting Christians? What is the fundamental thing behind it? Once again, they keep going back to this idea of white supremacy, but that's assuming that, well, let's see. There are black Christians, there are Latino Christians, there are Asian Christians, there are Indian Christians. What does any of this have to do with white supremacy, unless you want to equate Christianity and the Bible with white supremacy? Now, we all know that, quite frankly, the Ibram X. Kendis of the world, yeah, that's exactly what they want to do. They believe that the Christian faith in particular is a creation of white supremacy and is used to, well, basically keep people of color down. That's their belief. It is, which is kind of interesting, because once again, their goal is, they're saying, well, they're trying to proliferate or trying to come against discrimination, but yet they're openly discriminating against people of faith. So in other words, you're okay if you're a Christian if you don't actually believe the Bible. All right? It's okay to be a Christian as long as you don't actually believe the Bible. That is their perspective. If you actually happen to believe that marriage is between a man and a woman, if you happen to believe that, I don't know, once again, that there's only two genders, if you happen to believe that life in the womb should be protected because it is actually a life, then yeah, no, you're in trouble with. Which is also odd, because what we know of to be white supremacy or racism is not biblical in nature. It is in no way biblical in nature. By the way, that's not to say that there have not been people, or there have not been people in institutions that have perverted the Bible, that have perverted the Word of God in order to push out an agenda that is not biblical, that is not scriptural. Sadly, that has happened, and sadly, in some cases, that is still happening today. But in this particular case, yeah, no, their whole goal, once again, is to come against people of faith, people of Christian faith, who are not willing to buy into their radical ideas and radical perspectives. Now, how do I know it to be radical? Let's just think about this for a second. For a lifetime, right? For an entire lifetime, we believe that there were men and women. I mean, not a lifetime, like more than a lifetime. Since the beginning of time. Now, all of a sudden, there are 72 genders. And we're talking, this went from something that was being discussed pre-COVID to something that now, if you do not accept it, you are a radical extremist. Think about that. Think about the fact that the Supreme Court just made it very clear. And by the way, the Supreme Court made it very clear on the issue of abortion that there is no constitutional right. There is nowhere in the Constitution that has enumerated that abortion is a right. It's not there. It is just simply not there. In fact, they went out of their way to note that it was something that was flat out made up by justices who wanted a particular outcome. And they decided, sorry, they said, we're not going to ban abortion. Because I think what a lot of pro-life people would have liked to have had them say was, no, abortion is not only is it not a right, but it violates the right to an individual's life who is still in the womb. They could have made it a right. Now, many would argue that they would have been doing the exact opposite or the exact extreme of what the folks did before when they made abortion a right. Right? They could have made the right to life a right. Anyway, but that aside, what they said was the Constitution doesn't speak to it. Therefore, the state, this is a right that is that basically a decision that needs to be made by the states. Anyway, but if you believe that, right? If in other words, if you're in California, you have a right to an abortion according to California law, according to California. I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if the constitutional amendment passed or not. I'm trying to remember if it was on. I honestly, once again, I don't want to tell you that it was on the ballot and passed because I don't remember offhand if it was or it wasn't or if it's going to be. But all that having been said, right now it's protected in the state of California. It's protected in many states. In other states, it's protected. You can still do it, but there are restrictions. I don't know of any states. I'm not saying there aren't any. I think there's maybe one where it's out and outright banned. And I think that's Mississippi or Alabama, one of the two. I know there are some states that have a restriction on it after 6 weeks. So after 6 weeks, it's only to protect the life of the mother or in the case of rape and incest. But there are no states that flat out ban abortion. But if you say that, well, you're a radicalist. You're a radical extremist. Once again, for simply pointing out what the law actually says, what the truth actually is. Because I guess that's it. I guess if you believe in the truth, that then makes you that makes you a radical extremist. Maybe that's it. Anyway, all I know is, folks, all I know is that it used to be that people of faith were protected. It used to be that, you just didn't spy on churches. You didn't spy on people of faith just because they were people of faith. Well, guess what? Evidently, under the Biden administration, that practice or that little protection no longer exists. So just know that if you happen to believe certain things, you might be under investigation. Just saying. All right, moving right along. Transitioning of 4-year-olds. All right, now when I say transitioning, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about gender transitioning. Now, this was a piece that I came across. This is from Libs of TikTok. So, they're the ones, and it's kind of funny because Libs of TikTok, the person who created it, all they really do is they take what a lot of the radical Marxists, so cultural Marxists, I feel comfortable calling them cultural Marxists. A lot of what they are doing and they're pushing and they're saying in social media, and all they do is they share it with people. And in some cases, they will help you to understand the context. But for the most part, all they're doing is really just sharing it with people and helping you to see and understand what they're talking about. And in this particular case, they're talking about exclusive. Whistleblower exposes hospital for performing genital sex change surgeries on minors. Now, we all know, and in this case, they're talking about transitioning as young as 4 years old. Now, I don't know if they're pushing surgeries on 4-year-olds, but they are promoting it at least promoting the idea of someone as young as 4 years old transitioning. And they're talking about Kaiser Permanente, a healthcare company with hospitals across the United States, issued a mandatory training course for all Kaiser employees in Southern California. The course covered topics on gender-affirming care, which basically is gender reassignment or gender cosmetic surgery is what it is. Anyway, the course covered gender cosmetic surgery, which included information on mastectomies, hysterectomies, vaginoplasties, and phalloplasties. Internal documents indicated that these procedures are allowed to be performed on minors. The training also offered tips for proper binding and tucking. Now, the presentation began with the introduction on the platinum rule. Someone is the gender they say they are when they say they are, regardless of their transition process. It is also to emphasize that gender-affirming surgeries or hormones are not necessary for one to transition. Essentially, Kaiser Medical is instructing its nurses to follow arbitrary guidelines. Now, this is very different than other stuff that they're saying, because this is the one where they talk about new mandatory hospital staff training, which promotes transitioning of 4-year-olds. It says an employee at Kaiser Permanente, one of the largest healthcare providers on the West Coast, reached out to us after she was mandated to take a new staff training on gender transition surgeries or gender cosmetic surgeries. The employee who wished to remain anonymous for fear of losing her job was horrified that a health facility would be promoting mutilation and castration of children. Let's take a deep dive into what Kaiser is teaching their staff about children transitioning. First, the learning objectives state that employees should be able to explain the importance of gender cosmetic surgery to patients. Doctors need to be able to explain to teenagers why it's so important that their breasts be chopped off. Makes complete sense. Next, providers employed KP are required to watch 45-minute course featuring a series of videos about transgender and gender diverse care. Now, I'm not going to read too much more of this, but what they're identifying here, what they're talking about here is that part of this is you have a 4-year-old who's basically saying, I'm transgender, I'm a transgender girl, and I've always known that I was a girl. Now, the thing is that this is an individual who, as a minor, when they start to reach puberty, will be given puberty blockers. Now, and I think Mike and I have both said this before. Adults who decide to do, who are in a position to make adult decisions. And these, by the way, this is an adult decision. Why is it an adult decision? Because these puberty blockers that they give, not just the puberty blockers, but then also the cross-gender or cross-sex hormones, have lasting effects. Things like infertility, things like osteoporosis, right? Some of the surgeries that they're doing, in particular, where they are chopping off parts. It ain't all working. It ain't all working out well, and it's causing a lot of problems and a lot of challenges for a lot of people who are going through those surgeries. For a minor to truly is a minor in a position where they can truly understand the long-term consequences of making this decision. And like I said, part of the thing is that if you look at the way and they're promoting some of this stuff in some schools and in some classrooms, it's not informing people about it. It's not letting people know that that they exist. It is literally a promotion of it. And children are. If you are promoting something, children, and you're promoting it as though it were cool and it were brave and it were something where if you decided to be a part of it, that you would be affirmed and everybody would come around you and hug you and hold you and tell you how great and brave you are. Well, guess what? You're going to get a certain number of people who maybe don't fall in that category, but they sure would like to have people around them tell them how brave and how loved they are. Because see, if you're a straight male, nobody cares about you. At least they don't care about you. In fact, if you're a straight white male, you are part of the problem. You are part of the patriarchy. You deserve to be looked down upon. And, you need to, understand your proximity to whiteness and apologize for the color of your skin. That's what they believe. Right? Now, obviously, anyway. But that's what they believe. And I will challenge anybody, if you don't believe that they believe that, I would love to sit down and debate that with you, because everything in your agenda says that is exactly what you believe. Just saying. Not saying, just saying. All right, moving on to our next topic. Our good friend John Lott over at the Crime Prevention Research Center, well, he's at it again, and he's pointing out that the FBI is cooking the books. Now, in this case, what he's talking about is they're cooking the books when it comes to how the FBI calculates how many good guys stop or intervene in either mass shootings or potential mass shootings, right? We're talking individual citizens. We're not talking security guards. We're not talking cops. We're talking about concealed carry permit holders or armed citizens who prevent mass shootings. Now, all the data shows us, and Tom Knighton points this out in his article over there at Bearing Arms. He points out a couple of things that are kind of obvious. We know that the number one thing that stops a potential mass casualty event involving firearms is a good guy with a gun. Whether it's a cop, whether it's a security guard, whether it is an armed citizen. Well, what the FBI has been trying to do, and the problem is most police departments don't keep the data, right? They don't record data when this sort of stuff. So a lot of times what happens is that you had the FBI bring in basically left-wing think tank groups to do the research, or student groups. And what they wind up doing is they go through news stories in order to find these incidents. Well, when they do this, they wind up missing a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of incidents that they wind up missing. And when the Crime Prevention Research Center went back and started looking through the data and looking through stories, doing the same exact thing because they know what to look for, well, let's just say that the FBI couldn't find. Let's say the FBI wouldn't accept what they were giving them. So let's try this. To compile its list, the FBI hired academics at the Advanced Law Enforcement Rapid Response Training Center at Texas State University. Police departments don't collect data, so the researchers had to find news stories about these incidents. It isn't surprising that people will miss cases or occasionally misidentify them when using news stories, but the FBI was unwilling to fix its errors when I pointed them out. My organization, the Crime Prevention Research Center, has found many more missed cases and is keeping an updated list. Back in 2015, I published a list of missed cases in a criminology publication. CRPC's numbers tell a different story. Out of 440 active shooter incidents from 2014 to 2022, an armed citizen stopped 157. Wow, that's a phenomenal number. We also found that the FBI had misidentified 5 cases, usually because the person who stopped the attack was incorrectly identified as a security guard. We found these cases on a budget of just a few $1,000s, though we found that armed citizens had stopped 8 times as many cases as the FBI claims. 8 times as many cases. 8 times. Let me say that one more time. 8 times as many cases as the FBI had stated. Now, they're making no assertion that they have unearthed all of these stories. It is quite possible that the news media itself never covers such incidents. While the FBI claims that just 4.6% of active shootings were stopped by law-abiding citizens carrying guns, the percentage that I found was 35.7%. I am more confident that we have identified a higher share of recent cases, and our figure for 2022 was even as high as 41.3%. So to kind of make that kind of clear to you folks, what they're saying here is, yeah, the FBI is cooking the books because the Department of Justice does not want the idea that good guys with guns, that law-abiding citizens are actually playing a significant role in reducing or stopping mass shootings. They don't want you to know that. They don't want you to know that because they don't want you to be armed. They don't want you to arm yourself. They don't want you to be prepared. I don't know why so many of them in the hierarchy of these groups do not want you to be prepared, but they don't. They just flat out don't. And so they're going to cook the books in order to make sure that that information doesn't get out. But you know that it does. Encourage you, go over either to the Crime Prevention Research Center, and I'm sure they'll have all the information right there. You can go and read Tom Knighton's article over at Bearing Arms. But whatever you do, make it a point to go there, check it out, and share it with your friends. Please, please, please take a moment and do that for those people who say, because there are a lot of people out there who believe that the good guy with a gun is a myth. Folks, it's not a myth. It is far from a myth. And it's interesting because I constantly have people. I had one guy who was a flat out liberal who was telling me, I could support you in your congressional race. There's one thing that I just cannot. He's like, if you would just give up the guns, I could support you. And I told him, I said, the right to keep and bear arms is so important that in the Bill of Rights, they made it the second. They made it the second Bill of Rights because they understood that the right to self-defense, that the right to be able to express yourself and to speak your truth is fundamental. All right, that's number one. But the right to defend yourself against all enemies, foreign and domestic, up to and including a tyrannical government, is vitally important. And I am not going to give that up. I'm not going to stand down from that. And all the data that I have seen says that an armed society is a polite society. People are a lot less likely to rob each other. They're a lot less likely to raise a hand to one another. It's called peace through strength, and it works. And I know you don't believe it works. I know there are people, oh, but what about the children? What about the children? Let me tell you something. Every single school shooting that has ever taken place has taken place in a gun-free zone. All of these shootings that take place that you're always so worried about and so concerned about, they all take place where firearms are not supposed to be. That's because people who engage in these things, who seek out children, they look for soft targets, right? People who seek to victimize and harm young people or children, they're looking for soft targets. And when you say that individuals who would otherwise be able to defend themselves and defend others are going to now have that right removed, you are setting them up to be victims. And that's just the truth. I know it's not emotionally what you want to hear, but it's the truth. And we could talk about it. We could talk about it all day. But do me a favor and try and help me to understand why you don't think it's the truth. Because I think it's kind of obvious that it is. I don't see how you can object to it. But you know what? I am always open to listen to what folks have to say. Because, I like a good conversation. Anyway, moving right along. And I wish Mike were here because Mike, this would be another opportunity for Mike to be here and say, I told you so, I told you so. Because, as we all say, the difference between a conspiracy theorist and a news reporter, right? About 6 months. Ivermectin lawsuit can now move forward. Now, where's that? Here we go. A federal appeals court has stated that a lawsuit that was actually wrongfully stopped. They're saying that this lawsuit can go forward. Now, you might remember ivermectin was a treatment, or some people suggested it as a treatment for COVID-19. Now, it was not something that was going to cure you of COVID. Nobody claimed that it was a cure to COVID. But ivermectin has played a significant role in reducing viral replication, which means that a lot of the symptoms that were causing death from COVID, it could help remediate those things. And it was showing that if you gave it, there was data that showed that if you gave it to people early enough in the process, I'm not talking about they were on their deathbed, but if you gave it to them early enough, it actually could increase the likelihood that they could survive. Well, there were a lot of doctors that were out there who were saying that, no, it's dangerous. Now, mind you, ivermectin, I believe in 2015 actually had won a Nobel Prize. I mean, it's mostly used. It's partially used by veterinarians, and they kept trying to say, "Oh, it's a horse dewormer." As a matter of fact, let me read part of the article here. It says 3 doctors behind the suit are claiming that the agency overstepped its bounds by aggressively. I don't know why it started playing. By aggressively messaging against the medication ivermectin for the treatment of COVID-19 symptoms. The federal appeals court on Friday overturned a lower court's ruling that the lawsuit could not continue. The doctors allege that the FDA harmed their reputations by publicizing medical advice against the drug, an action that would fall outside of the prerogative to inform, not prescribe. The federal appeals court found that there was a basis for the lawsuit to move forward. The FDA is not a physician. It has authority to inform, announce, and apprise, but not to endorse, denounce, or advise, Judge Don Willett wrote. The doctors have plausibly alleged that the FDA's post fell on the wrong side of the line between telling about and telling to. Now, here's the thing to understand about this, and I think a lot of people understand, if you really understand how the whole approval process worked for the vaccine, it was approved. It was an emergency approval. Now, for an emergency approval, to be able to go through, there can't be any therapeutics. There can't be another potential cure. There can't be other therapeutics. It has to be the only way. So things like ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine or monoclonal antibodies, they were all poo-pooed as not really being effective, not really working. They had to basically say, nope, don't exist, la, 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 can I hear you, does not exist, and actually pushed that through social media companies. They actually, we now know they met with social media companies on the regular, having them remove posts, blocking accounts, and taking down accounts of people who would dare say anything about those, right? That's what that was all about. It was all about getting that fast track approval so that the pharmaceutical companies could push the vaccine. And now we know that the vaccine was not as effective as they said it was. We know that it's not as safe as they said it was. Now, was it largely safe? Yes. Was it more effective than doing nothing? For many people, it was, right? But it didn't have the effectiveness that they said it did. It wasn't as safe for everyone as they said it was. And we know that, and part of the thing when they talked about how they not being safe was, the reason why we talk about it not being safe wasn't so much that there was a lot of evidence that it wasn't safe. It was that there was no evidence stating that it was. Because you don't know the long-term effects of a drug that you've only been handing out for a year or two. You just don't know the long-term effects. So once again, and I hate that the whole whether or not you got the vaccine or whether or not you believed in you hydroxychloroquine or ivermectin, I hate that it all became so political. My thing is, these are healthcare decisions, and I believe that individuals ought to be able to make the decisions that are best for them and their families, period. Now, if there is a drug out there that is clearly unsafe, people need to know about it. If it's got serious side effects, people need to know about it. Let them make an informed decision. But you don't shut people down. You don't, if there's, anyway. That was once again, it goes back to that approval process. It goes back to how they were trying to push that approval process. And sadly, many people, I think it's kind of funny, even more than people getting, families fighting, getting divided and fighting over Donald Trump. It was amazing to me how many families just fought over whether or not someone decided to get a vaccine or not. Look, I'm like this. You make your decision, what's best for you and what's best for your family. I did the same for my family. As information changed, I was able to make people were able to make better decisions. Once again, as we have more information, right? Instead of demonizing people. I hated that. I hated to see the people, well, if you got the vaccine, well, you were an idiot. Or well, if you don't get the vaccine, you're an idiot and you're trying to kill everybody. Really? Neither one of those proved out to be true. Now, I will say this. There were people who were the vaxxers, I'll call them the vaxxers, who literally made it so that people who did not get the vaccine, because we now know if you got the vaccine, you can both get COVID and you can spread it. But they had people lose their jobs and their livelihoods behind it. Seriously. People lost their jobs. Thousands of people lost their jobs, lost their livelihoods. And we're seeing now that the courts are siding on behalf of those individuals. So take with that what you want, but just know, by the way, now you've got those very same people who are like, well, we didn't know, and, just please forgive us, and there should be no. You made a very judgmental decision that once again hurt people, and you don't want to own the fact that you pushed those policies that hurt people. That honestly, and hurt, by the way, innocent people and their families. Caused people to lose their businesses. I mean, people who shut down, who forced businesses to shut down. There are people who lost their businesses, lost their homes, lost everything because of y'all who decided wanted to make it a political thing. Anyway, I will move All right, moving on. We are now at that point in the show where we're going to talk about our parting shots. Brought to you by Hog Holsters. Go to hogholsters.com. Use discount code The Rundown, all caps, no spaces. Get your Hog Holster today. All right, this first one. Let's see. Oh, let's go with this one. Here we go. Now, you might remember that right now there are, well, they've come to find out there is a treasure trove of emails that are in the possession of the National Archives that have some aliases, some emails that were from email, secret email accounts where Joe Biden communicated with his son and with the consultants with his son's company using pseudonyms or basically fake names. And this is one. It's got Joe Biden here. It says, "Listen, here's the deal, Jack." He didn't say Jack, but I'll say Jack. "Here's the deal, Jack. If mine isn't the most transparent administration in history, then my name isn't Robin Ware, Robert L. Peters, or J.R.B. Ware." Yeah, those, by the way, were his email aliases. But hey, you know what? As we start to head into the presidential election cycle, Joe Biden is going to be out there campaigning, and I'm wondering, because we all know he's a little bit slower, a little bit busier than he was before. But as he takes the last month and spends basically like 3 weeks out of the last month on vacation, one has to wonder what his election is going to look like. And I think he's got a lot of people wondering because you come across this meme where you got the guy here from, what is that called? What was that show called? Oh, well, you guys will tell me in the comments what show it was. I was like, I can't believe I know it. Mad Men. That's it. Mad Men. And he's about to take a sip of a drink. It says, Joe Biden has no 2024 campaign office and only 4 people on payroll. I'm certain it'll be a fair election. Because he did run the 2020 election from his basement. He had rallies where he had 8 people who showed up. I mean, when you looked at the size of the rallies, that people who were showing up, and all the people were showing up for Donald Trump, and the fact that nobody was showing up for Joe Biden, and he wasn't doing much of anything, one has to wonder. But hey, I think it's a legitimate one. And then we've got this last one here. Oh, this is my good friend Thomas Sowell. And he says, "Ours may be the first civilization destroyed not by the power of enemies, but by the ignorance of our teachers and the dangerous nonsense they are teaching our children. In an age of artificial intelligence, they are creating artificial stupidity." Yes, they are. When you base people's decisions not based on what is true, but what is false, which is what a lot of these teachers are doing, that, ladies and gentlemen, is artificial stupidity. And yes, many of those engaged in the educational system, in media, in entertainment, are guilty of those crimes. And that's going to be it for today's program. But before we go, please make sure to visit our sponsors. We got Hitman Industries. Visit them at hitmanindustries.net. Rifle and pistol length barrels available. Also Glock barrels. Check them out. hitmanindustries.net. Be a part of California's future today. Join CRA. And then get your Hog Holster at hogholster.com. Use discount code The Rundown. All caps, no spaces. Get your Hog Holster today. And finally, if you're looking for outdoor gear, combat gear, cold weather gear, hot weather gear, whatever gear you're looking for, folks, they got it all but the gun. Visit uscombatgear.com. And with that, we're going to go ahead and call it a day. We very much appreciate you tuning in. We appreciate you liking and sharing the program and encouraging your friends to do the same. We will be back tomorrow on Hump Day. See you then.